Hey everybody, just want to do a quick lecture on chapter 1, what is ecology? And so to start, ecology is very generally and generically interactions or the study of interactions of organisms with their environment. This includes biotic interactions, so organism to organism, as well as abiotic interactions, so organisms' interactions with their non-living environment. And ecology is not natural history in and of itself, although natural history can play an important role in ecology. Being a good natural historian can lead to interesting thoughts and questions in ecology. And it's also not environmental science. So think about environmental science more as a study where policy is included, so a lot of the social sciences are included. So to give an example, I, for my dissertation work, studied how dams influenced downstream aquatic fauna as well as their habitat. And so you can see the silly little cartoon down here on the bottom where Larry's acute sense of awareness served him well. Of course, that's what does a fish say when it runs into a wall? Dam. And so what I was looking at were some habitat variables that are associated with streamfish health and habitat for streamfish, and things of such as coarseness. You can see here, so how coarse the embedded substrate was, or the substrate in the stream, and then also how diverse the substrate was. And this is all below a dam. So in this example, you can see the 0 being immediately below the dam and 5,000 being 5,000 meters below the dam, or 5 kilometers. And then also how did the species diversity change along with those changing substrate metrics. And so as an example, ecologists might study dams' impact on fish, and then environmental scientists might take those impacts and try to come up with mitigating solutions on how to combat those problems that dams create for fish. And then an ecologist might study the success or failures of those mitigating solutions. And if there are failures, then that come out of an ecological study, and environmental scientists might try to come up with some alternative solutions, again, trying to mitigate those impacts. So there are some sort of old ideas about ecology that still stick around, sort of the title of the slide, Old Ideas Die Hard. And while both sort of old ideas and new ideas converge and agree that species and their environment are interwoven, so they sort of communicate with one another. The idea that there's a, quote, balance of nature, and that nature is stable and orderly, and also that systems tend to return to their original state in sort of a direction towards some optimum. Those are sort of older ideas of ecology and not really thought to hold true, although I will say that stable state ecology, so these ecological stable states where this system sort of rolls around in this cup, and we're going to talk about this probably later in the semester, but the system is really sort of bound by the ecological parameters. And then at some point, if the stable state, if the system gets perturbed too much, it can cross this threshold and end up in a new ecological stable state. But typically, we think of systems sort of rolling around in this area and remaining within some bounds. And so you can think about that, I guess, in terms of the, quote, balance of nature as being somewhat temporally and spatially dependent. So through time, the system might sort of return back to its orderly, original, optimal, quote, optimal state, although optimal is laden with some emotions. And then the more contemporary view is that ecological systems are really controlled by stochasticity and uncertainty, and they're really non-directional. And the other thing I want to mention is that ecology operates in multiple scales and dimensions. And so, and I start here in the bottom left with organisms. Sorry, I've got some kids over that are being a little noisy. So starts with organisms, and we could probably go finer scale than that and down all the way down to genes. And then we have populations, communities, ecosystems, and the landscape. And also that so those are sort of the dimensions, right? And then there are these temporal scales of hours, years, decades, centuries, and millennia. And so organismal study, ecological study may span hours or years, potentially decades, depending on what kind of species we're studying. Population processes typically occur at much greater temporal scales as well as spatial scales, but they can operate in these sort of smaller scales, again, depending on the species we're interested in, the population that we're interested in. And then as we move up to communities, you get in these larger regional, local to regional spatial scales and decades to centuries in terms of the temporal scale. And then you just keep moving out in these larger and larger dimensions. As the dimension gets larger, so too do the temporal and spatial scales. And that's all I've got for you for that bit. I hope that is helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the discussion on at the end of the module. Thanks. All right, what are the 2 words?
Ecology.
And what does that mean?
Study of house.
Study of house. Who lives in your house?
My daddy, my mommy, Finn, and me.
Who is Finn?
My little brother.
Okay, anybody else? Or any animals?
One right now. That's Pearl. And we have another one, Bonnie. And, well, those are the 2 dogs. And we have 2 cats, Bella and Sable.
And how would you study your house?
By drawing a picture, and then I would split it up into parts and see, like, so say I had an assignment to like create something with shapes, so I could split my house, I could draw a picture of my house and split it into pieces and try and put it back together.
Awesome.
My name is Jeremy Dirteen. I'm a PhD candidate in Dr. Rob Baldwin's lab. I mainly study conservation ecology and landscape ecology, and I would say that my definition of ecology is the study of how species, populations, communities, and abiotic processes operate and interact amongst each other.
Study of a house, right? Mm-hmm. Good. And tell me about your house. Who lives in your house?
My dad, my mom, my sister, and me.
And anybody else? And T. Who's T?
My dog.
Okay, your dog. And how would you study your house?
I would use like school materials and then like just study.
Awesome.
Good morning. This is Rob Baldwin. I'm a professor in the Department of Forestry and Environmental Conservation at Clemson University. I am an ecologist, and the branch of ecology that I study is conservation biology. Conservation biology is the application of the science of ecology, including how humans fit into the system to protect the diversity of life. My definition of ecology is the study of how ecosystems work. We observe ecosystems to understand their function, how the parts fit together, and is the sum of the parts the whole system, or are there emergent properties that come from the interactions among the parts? In other words, is the whole greater than the sum of its parts? Probably is.
What are they?
Eco and logy.
Okay, that's ecology.
Yeah.
But the 2, remember the 2 original words? Oikos and
Oikos and logy.
and ology.
Ology.
Yep. Okay, so what do those 2 words mean?
Oikos means houses and ology means the study of.
Good. And tell me about your house.
It is white.
Who lives in it?
My mom, my dad, my sister, and me.
And who else?
And my dog.
Okay. And tell me how you would study your house.
I would study it it is small, so I would study it kind of modern, I guess.
Okay, thanks. Tell me the two words.
Ecology and orchis.
And what do those two words mean?
House and study.
Okay, so the study of houses, right? Who lives in your house?
My mom, my dad, and my brother, my sister, my dog, and my cat.
Okay, and how would you study your house?
It's white, and we have a big yard. And if you were to split it into a house, it would be 2 small squares. And yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Marzieh Motalebi. I'm an assistant professor at Clemson University, Department of Forestry and Environmental Conservation. I'm an ecological economist by training, and I'm very interested in putting values on ecosystem services such as water quality, water quantity, carbon sequestration, and wildlife habitat. My discipline focuses on interdisciplinary topics which investigate interdependency of human economies and natural ecosystems.
Hi there, my name is Carl Loretta, and I am a PhD candidate under Dr. Marzieh Motalebi and Dr. Rob Baldwin. My specialization is in natural resource and ecological economics. My research is in quantifying and evaluation of ecosystem services and designing a sustainable financing mechanism called payments for ecosystem services for conservation programs. You see, in my field, ecology and economics are intertwined. The origin of the word ecology and economics can be similarly traced from the Greek word oikos, which means home. The difference, though, is logos in ecology means to understand, while in nomos in economics means to manage. Oikos, logos, or ecology is to understand home, while oikos nomos means to manage home. And take note, one cannot manage what it does not understand.
Tell me who lives in your house. You. Who else?
Mommy,
Uh-huh. Who else?
you,
Yeah, who else?
Pooh,
Yeah, who else?
Bonnie Boo,
Uh-huh. Who else? What about Laurel?
yes,
Yes. What about, do we have kitties?
uh-huh,
Do they live in the house?
uh-huh,
What are their names?
Gable,
And
Bella.
good job.